Hi everyone, my name's Rosie and I am the co-director of the Brickbox, which is an arts company based here in Bradford, but working nationally and internationally. And we were founded over a decade ago now, and our principal practice is transforming space. So I'm really excited to be able to speak to you today. So our mission is using art, love and magic to inspire people as well as transform space. And we often describe ourselves as engineers of atmosphere. So over the last decade, I've created and produced loads and loads of arts projects in a really, really wide range of spaces. So yeah, I'm excited to be able to contribute today and talk a bit more about what it means to transform space. Because to me, transforming space begins with two things. The first is an emotional response, and the second is with an imaginative response. And personally, I find they're very much intertwined, but I think it's really important to consider the two aspects. So I've worked in all sorts of different sorts of places. I've worked in the underpass of motorway flyovers, delivering co-creative projects with communities. Empty department stores, corners of city centres that very few people seem to care for. And I think there's some really core considerations and a logic to work with, actually, because at Brickbox, what we do is foreground creativity, care, and also collaboration. So in order to kind of illustrate this a bit better, I'm going to share some examples with you. So I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, so I'm going to talk through some images from previous work that I've done. And as I talk through, I'd really like you to look out for how the images make you feel, what you can see, how people might be reacting, what can you see is happening, and kind of notice the effect of the spaces and the sort of intervention that we seem to have made to that space. And I'll try to give you a little bit of background as we go through. So this first image is from a project the Brickbox delivered a few years ago in London and Bradford. This is from an event which was in Little Germany in Bradford, and it's called the Electric Fireside. So this is a solar powered fireside installation with sort of digital technology in the centre in the coals. And we worked with community groups to kind of co-create a storytelling event in this sort of dark cobbled street outside a closed up mill. So you can see there, the installation is glowing and we've put down these rugs and lamps, and actually it changes because it's quite unexpected. It's a juxtaposition to see a sort of living room stuff outdoors on the cobbled streets. It makes people feel like, oh, something different's happening here, and people are starting. This is the very beginning of the event. In fact, we hadn't even opened up the event, which is why there's a bit of fencing there in the back, and people had started to gather and to sit down. So actually there was something recognizable in a sofa, but it being an unusual space meant that it invited someone to come and sit down there. Secondly, we've got this photo. That's me in the middle, and my two business partners. So this is a completely different intervention. You can't really see where it is here, but this installation, the Toast Temple, was on a series of high streets in South London. So we had this sort of performative installation. We had sort of performative personalities, and we had this sort of fun performance around toast. But actually, by creating this kind of golden, sparkly toast temple, and by wearing these costumes, by doing certain things, but putting it on busy high streets in South London, we became a kind of spectacle. And actually, a lot of people kind of wanted to come and speak to us, not knowing what on earth we were up to. They would come and be attracted because it's sparkly, it's weird, like, why have you got a temple of toast? All these sorts of questions. So there's some humor involved in this one. This third picture is from an event we did in Bradford. This is in the old Marks and Spencer's department store on Darley Street. And Yeah, quite a different sort of atmosphere. You might kind of notice the lighting sort of being quite different colors, but also, again, you've got a juxtaposition here because you've kind of got natural things like branches and twigs and everything in, sort of an old shop. So one of the ways that we transformed this space was because it was so vast, we thought, right, we really want to kind of make it feel different. And it felt very hard, hard, shiny floor and sharp angles. And we wanted to soften it. And so we created a project concept called the Wild Woods. And we filled the whole department store full of trees and art and interactive things. And there wasn't one single stage. There was lots of things to discover. So in that sense, we used a kind of this softer kind of natural resources to transform this space. And the other thing that you can see, this woman here in the silver jacket, we had lots of people working in the space, kind of running workshops and inviting people in to have a go. These people are drawing with felt tip markers and torches on sticks onto paper that's hanging down from the ceiling. And so there's kind of playful things to do. So moving on, I mentioned that I'd been working on a project in a motorway underpass, and this is it. So this is in Canning Town in East London, and this is the underside of the A13. And here we've got a community event. We created a kind of a temporary urban green called the A13 Green, and we had a bandstand, like you can see. And we had, this was an event called Street Dance the Maypole. So there's a tradition of maypole dancing, but actually this is done with beatboxers and folk music as well. So this was a really, really good sort of mashup of different sort of cultural phenomenon, I guess. And again, it's colourful. It uses a circle. People are standing in a circle here, and you've got a circle of a bandstand. And we use a lot of circles in our events. I think it creates some really interesting, more democratic kinds of participation. So again, with kind of relatively a small intervention, here we've just got the bandstand and we've got the maypole. It feels really, really, really different. And it being set against that motorway flyover and all of that concrete, that space feels really, really different from what it does usually. So more circles and lighting. So this is a project in Durham in the north of England. And what's happening here is a school group that we've been working with are presenting their stories around the Fireside, the electric Fireside that you might have remember seeing in the previous photo. So again, this is in their school car park. And it was really important to this group, the school group that we're working with, that they could invite their grandparents and their parents, and there isn't very good public transport, so we didn't want to go anywhere else. Actually, we wanted to do it at the place where the kids felt most most ownership of, and that they could invite their families along. So, and also you can see here that they've all got these hats. So one of the things of, if you've been working on the project, you got a hat, and the kids designed these hats, and they wanted to show that they were kind of different, but because they're all different kind of colors and stuff, but also sort of part of a team. So yeah, different interventions in that way. So this is back to Bradford, and this is a dance floor out on the street in Bradford. And this is one of my favorite interventions to do, is just put down a black and white check dance floor, and actually people with a few tunes, people will often dance. So again, this is from that project, the Wild Woods, that I was talking about. And with the Wild Woods, where we'd taken, you saw in that previous picture, we'd taken branches and trees inside. We wanted to bring some of the inside things outside. So we set up this dance floor and sort of a DJ booth and sort of glitter curtains, and we had projections on the side of the walls. We had lights outside, and we wanted to make it feel homely and attractive. This is one of the first interventions actually that the BritBox ever did. So this is in Brixton Village Market in 2010. And at that point, there were a lot of closed units in Brixton Village Market. There was lots of empty space. There were some people still there, and there was kind of like a big push to get more people to come down to the market and at different times. And so we helped to program this performance event where these two performers with paper bags on their heads are kind of doing a sort of like a mime performance. In the foreground on the right, you've got sort of a guy playing the trumpet and a drum kit, which is on a pallet, which was actually on wheels, so they could be sort of pulled around the space. And what we didn't know at the time was that the performance were going to include fire in the performance. So so I guess that was maybe kind of that using that circle again, interesting, but the atmosphere that's created by having audience around on all sides, and then thinking about what if someone came down to market and just saw this happening and thought, oh my gosh, what's happening here? So again, you're kind of challenging, but by daytime it's a market, and in the evening it's a performance space. It's completely different. So something about transforming spaces is also about challenging what people are expecting to see. This is now we're back in Bradford again, more recently. And when David Hockney turned 80 years old, Bradford Council wanted to do a large kind of like a public celebration of his 80th birthday. So here we have 5 David Hockneys, and in the background, a huge giant puppet David Hockney on their birthday disco dance floor. So there's lots of kind of, there was a big thing around the event was, would David Hockney actually come? And I think it was quite clear to us, the organisers, that he wouldn't be, because he largely lives in a different country. And he probably, I don't think his mobility maybe was as good as coming to this birthday disco. So we kind of made a bit of a joke and made everyone a birthday David, or everyone had the capacity to put on a wig and glasses and wear this kind of iconic look. So yeah, again, we could check, this photo is taken outside Cartwright Hall in Lister Park. And again, just with a little bit of sort of playfulness and colour, people really started to act differently. And we just put up these rope barriers around our famous outside dance floor, and it just sort of changed into a different space and people started acting differently. This is more work underneath the motorway flyover. This is in the Thamesmead estate in south east London. This is a really simple installation. You can see that it's kind of, this is just sort of a crossroads of pathways here, but actually some really simple electric tea lights and paper bags, and created a maze for some kids. And that space was completely transformed. And we gave local kids sort of glow sticks and things to play with and things to have a laugh with. And I think what was previously thought of as a really undesirable and dangerous space that people didn't want to be in, or that their kids shouldn't be playing out in, had a really, really fun time and completely changed the atmosphere of the space. And the thing is, with temporary interventions, they do end, like the next night, this wasn't here, but there is an emotional sort of a resonance that stays with people afterwards. And this really worked. And actually people did think differently about the space and about the possibilities of that space after this event. This is a photo from Helsinki. I'm smiling because that's my business partner, Eleanor, there having a sing-song. And it's in a public square in a suburb of Helsinki, where we were invited to work by a community that where the square sort of suffers from a bad reputation. And so we did a series of kind of workshops with the local community and sort of co-created this new, I guess, narrative for for Kanalmaki, which is the area, which is that it could be a spa, that it was this beautiful spa place that you could come and sort of relax and be soothed and take the waters. And we actually hired these temporary hot tubs that you can see Eleanor modeling there. And we had bubbles, and behind her is a choir singing, and this sort of very, what's the word, sort of serene atmosphere came to the square. And we built the whole thing with the help of the local people, and they very much were sort of owning this. So with a few kind of almost, again, it was the imaginative concept of, well, what if Kanalmaki Square was a place that people were actively really trying to come to for a peaceful time rather than its negative reputation. So that was kind of where the intervention came from. So it started with that kind of like emotional response from the community saying, we want this to be different. And it came from that imagination that we sort of collectively dreamt up together. This is a very bizarre project that we did quite a few years ago in Wandsworth in South London. And that tower that you can see lit up with a light here, that is an abandoned brewery tower. And Eleanor, my business partner, and I negotiated use for performers to perform from that tower. It wasn't safe to have the public on site, but they could be on this bit of scrap land where the photo is being taken. So again, with a bit of imagination, actually, that space, which previously was just kind of a huge, shut down brewery, it hadn't been used for years, which local people were kind of like, there's nothing happening there. All of a sudden, there's a light on and there's performance coming out of it. And actually that foreshadowed a huge sort of redevelopment in the area. So that space looks completely different now. So just a few more things to share. You know, we've done things like put choirs in empty pubs and projected seascapes on them. We have, you might recognize this in the centre of Bradford. We put this golden Bradford boar on the top of a venue that we were using at the time, and just kind of inserting a bit of humour, I guess, into the landscape. And I think that's the thing that like different from the more performative interventions. This transforms space 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year, because you'll be walking down Ivegate and people look up and you see them saying, why is that boar up there? How did that happen? So I am going to stop sharing these images now. So hopefully that helps illustrate my work a bit more. And what I'd really encourage you guys to do is to think about what it means to be welcomed into a space. So think about access. Yes, think about, you know, physical access. People have got all different sorts of bodies. So how can people get into your space? But also think about, you know, how much people might want to come in through a certain sort of door. You know, can you see through the door? Is it a brightly coloured door? Same for the windows. Can people see what's happening inside? And a lot of us, as we walk around, we all sort of read the city. So think about what your space, what you want to communicate. How easy is it for people to kind of read from the outside what's happening? And if they came in, how do they read what's happening? And also, as you can see from the kind of work we've done, how can your space be beautiful, and how can it be intriguing, and how can it be fun, and how can you use color differently and lighting differently, and how is it set up, and what do you want people to do there? And, you know, if you want them to stay, then, you know, maybe have some seating, and think about all of those sorts of things. And I think some really interesting examples of where space has been transformed well in Bradford. I mean, one example that we all know about is the Mirror Pool. So the Mirror Pool is completely changed the city centre. On a sunny day in the summer when the water's on, you know, you can hear kids screaming and laughing and having a great time. And that is a really amazing intervention in space and transformation space, in my opinion. So yeah, hopefully this has ignited some thoughts for you. Like I said, my company is called The BritBox, so you can follow us on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, or you can email us on hello@thebritbox. And yeah, I'm really, really excited to see what you come up with. So good luck, and feel free to get in touch if you want to. All right, bye-bye.